Good morning, gentlemen. Today, inshallah, we're going to go with our classes, our virtual ones, or distant learning classes. And today's lesson, as clear and as apparent in front of you, is grammar. I will discuss with you today grammar lesson, reviewing and talking about complex sentences. Let's go. Now look at these structures: weak, silent, quiet, and motivated. Weak, silent, quiet, and motivated. What do we call this structure? Yes, weak, silent, quiet, and motivated. Do we call them sentences? Of course, no. So what do we call them? Yes, we call them, yes, sentence fragment. Sentence fragment, simply because we do not have a complete meaning or a complete sentence. Sentence simply expresses one whole complete idea, and it has subject, verb, and then completions. Okay, so this part or this structure, we call it, fragment. Of course, writers, when doing their job, use different types of structures for different reasons. The second one is, I have a place on the East Coast. Sentence 1. Sentence 2. My parents and my grandparents were passive. Sentence 3. I play and watch football matches. Now look at each one of these three sentences. The first one has a subject with I, a verb which is have, then the rest of the sentence. The second one has two subjects, my parents and my grandparents, but one verb, which is where. Look at the third sentence. It has one subject, which is the pronoun I, and two verbs, play and watch. So one subject, one verb, two subjects, one verb, one subject, two verbs. Still, each one of these three sentences express one complete thought, one whole idea. So what do we call this type of sentences? Yes? Sure? Let's find. Let's find. Yes, simple sentences. So a simple sentence has a subject and a verb. No matter the number is, but no connections. Two subjects, one verb, or one subject, two verbs. Let's move to the next part. Look at these sentences again. I wanted to hang out with my friends at the mall, but we were afraid to get infected. The second sentence, the referee had to check the VAR, or we would have raised a complaint against him. Look at the first part. I wanted to hang out with my friends at the mall. It's a complete sentence. The subject is the pronoun I, the verb is want, and then the completion, wanted to hang, so the verb, and then the completion until the word mall. Then we have another part, but we were afraid to get infected. Here again, subject which is we, and the verb which is where, and the rest of the sentence. So if you can notice here, we can have two sentences here. We already have two simple sentences. I wanted to hang out with my friends at the mall, and the other one, but we were afraid to get infected. And here in the middle we have this connector, which is but. Considering the second sentence, the referee had to check the VAR, or we would have raised a complaint against him. Again, we have two simple sentences. The first one is, the referee had to check the VAR, with the subject, with the referee, a verb which is had, and then the rest of the sentence. Also, the second simple sentence is we, the subject, would have raised the verb, and then a complaint against him at the completion or the rest of the sentence. When we have a sentence that is composed of two simple sentences with words like but and or and even and, what do we call these sentences, or what do we call this structure? Let's find. Go. Yes, we call it compound sentence. So a compound sentence has or consists of two simple sentences with the word but or or and in the middle or between. طيب, let's move to the next structure. Number one, I volunteer at the animal shelter when I have free time. Two, I help care for pets that are awaiting adoption. Three, I would go on a world tour if I were a millionaire. 4. I tried to remember what I had written down. Okay, let's consider each one of these of these four structures. Um, I volunteer at the animal shelter when I have free time. So, if we try to divide this sentence or this part, this structure, into two parts, we'll find that I volunteer at the animal shelter. This is a part. The other part, when I have free time. Okay, the other one, I help care for pets. A first part. The other part is that are awaiting adoption. The third sentence, I would go on a wallet tour. This is the first part. And then, if I were a millionaire, this is the second part. Sentence 4, I tried to remember, first part, what I had written down. For me, I think these structures also have, each one of these structures has two parts. But I think they are not simple sentences as we said before. The first part or even one of these two parts is a complete meaning part. I volunteer at the animal shelter. If you stop here, the sentence is full and I just complete. However, when you say the other part, when I have free time alone, without the first part, when I have free time, you feel that the meaning is incomplete. It needs another part to complete it, to make it clear. Also, I help care for pets. Yes, the meaning of this part is totally complete. I help care for pets. The other part is that are awaiting adoption. Yes, this part also has a kind of meaning, but surely the meaning is incomplete. It needs more clarification. You cannot tell someone or just talk to a person saying that are awaiting adoption. He will feel that something is missing. For the third structure, I would go on a world tour. Yes, it's a complete sentence. It's fully meaningful. However, when you say, if I were a millionaire, hmm? If I were a millionaire, yes, it's still not complete. It needs another part to complete it. The other structure, I try to remember. Yes, it can give a meaning. But when I say what I had written down, you feel that the sentence is not complete. So each one of these structures has two parts. One of them has complete meaning, the other does not. Before we go on, what do we call this structure? Looks like it's not fragment. Yes. It's not simple. Sure. And also it's not compound. So what do we call it? It's fine. We call it complex. We call it complex sentence. So, but why complex sentence? Let's find. Simply because a complex sentence contains an independent clause and a dependent clause. An independent clause and a dependent clause. Independent clause that can stand by itself, that the meaning is clear. Dependent clause has to be clarified by other part of the sentence. If we go back, yes. In the first example, I volunteer at the animal shelter when I have free time. Which part is independent and which part is dependent clause? Suggestions? Yes. So, if you think the same way, I would feel that I volunteer at the animal shelter is the independent clause because it's complete. The meaning is full. So the other part, when I have free time, this part would be the dependent clause because it depends on the other part. It needs the other part to make the meaning clearer. For the second example, I help care for pets. I think this is an independent clause. However, that are awaiting adoption is dependent clause. Also, for number 3, I will go on a wallet tour. This is an independent clause. However, if I were a millionaire is a dependent one, a dependent clause. For the fourth sentence, I try to remember is independent clause, while what I had written down is dependent clause. So we go back to the definition of a complex sentence here and say again that it has two clauses. A clause is a group or consists of a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. The clause could be independent with complete meaning, but still part of a sentence, and dependent one with the meaning that is not complete. How can we, how can we identify the dependent clause? Let's find here. Yes, dependent clauses are introduced by one, subordinating conjunctions like while, when, because, although, if. If we go to the previous example, you will find that we had a sentence with if and a sentence with when. So when we have these conjunctions, while, when, because, although, if, and another less or the rest of the list, we will having a complex sentence. And the clause, the dependent clause would be beginning with a subordinate conjunction. Also, dependent clauses can be introduced by a relative pronoun or relative pronouns such as who, whose, which, whom, and that. For the third part that is used to introduce dependent clauses is relative adjectives like where, when, and why. So again, if we go back to this slide, you will find here that we have we have when, we have that, relative, relative, okay, sorry, this one is relative, and this one is a relative adjective. And also here we have if, subordinate, subordinate conjunction, and also here we have what. Okay, so these conjunctions here are called or are used to introduce the dependent clause. So in order to identify the dependent clauses, you will find one of these. Subordinating conjunctions like while, when, because, although, if, or a relative pronoun like who, whose, which, whom, and that, or even a relative adjective like where, when, and why. We'll stop here and we'll complete this lesson later, inshallah. See you, my friends.